Nichiren Buddhism is a branch of Mahayana Buddhism based on the teachings of the 13th century Japanese monk Nichiren and belongs to the schools of so-called Kamakura Buddhism. Nichiren Buddhism is a comprehensive term covering several major schools and many sub-schools, as well as several of Japan's new religions. Its many denominations have in common a focus on the chanting and recital of the Lotus Sutra, which is thought to hold extraordinary power. Nichiren Buddhism is generally noted for its focus on the Lotus Sutra and an attendant belief that all people have an innate Buddha nature and are, therefore, inherently capable of attaining enlightenment in their current form and present lifetime. It is also noted for its hardline opposition to any other form of Buddhism, which Nichiren saw as deviating from the Buddhist truth he had discovered. Formal Nichiren Buddhist temple groups are commonly associated with Nichiren Shoshu and Nichiren Shu, while modern 21st century lay groups vary, such as Kenshokai, Shoshinkai and Sokugakai, Rishokozeikai and various others are also known. Founder. For the age of 16 until 32, Nichiren, originally a monk of Tendai Buddhism, studied in numerous temples in Japan, especially Mount Hiei and Mount Koya, in his day the major centers of Buddhist study, in the Kyoto-Nara area. He eventually concluded that the highest teachings of Shakyamuni Buddha were to be found in the Lotus Sutra. The mantra he expounded on the 28th of April 1253, known as the Daimoku or Odaimoku's Namu Myoho Rengekyo, expresses his devotion to that body of teachings. During his lifetime, Nichiren stridently maintained that the contemporary teachings of Buddhism taught by other sects were, to his mind, mistaken in their interpretations of the correct path to enlightenment, and therefore refuted them publicly and vociferously. In doing so, he provoked the ire of the country's rulers and of the priests of the sects he criticized. He was subjected to persecution which included an attempted beheading and at least 2 exiles. Some Nichiren schools see the attempted beheading incident as marking a turning point in Nichiren's teaching, since Nichiren began inscribing the Gohonzon and wrote a number of major doctrinal treatises during his subsequent 3-year exile on Sado Island, in the Japan Sea. After a pardon and his return from exile, Nichiren moved to Mount Minobu in today's Yamanashi Prefecture, where he and his disciples built a temple, Kuonji. Nichiren spent most of the rest of his life here training disciples. Basic teachings. Nichiren Buddhism is based on the Lotus Sutra. Common to most lineages of Nichiren Buddhism is the chanting of Namu Myoho Rengekyo and Nam Myoho Rengekyo, and veneration of the Gohonzon. The definition of Gohonzon varies between the Nichiren schools. Nichiren Buddhism expounds the doctrine of the 10 worlds of life, the 10 factors of existence, the principle of the 3,000 realms in a single moment of life, and the teachings of the 3 proofs for verification of the validity of teachings. Most of these teachings are shared and identical in most schools and groups of Nichiren Buddhism. However, different interpretations are found for the doctrine of the 3 Great Secret Dharmas, called also the 3 Great Secret Laws, and 3 Jewels. Nichiren's writings. Nichiren was a prolific writer. His personal communications and writings to his followers, as well as numerous treatises, detail his view of the correct form of practice for the latter day of the law, lay out his views on other Buddhist schools, particularly those of influence during his lifetime, and elucidate his interpretations of Buddhist teachings that preceded his. These writings are collectively known as Gosho Goiban. Which of these writings, including the Ongi Kuden, are deemed authentic or apocryphal is a matter of debate within the various schools of today's Nichiren Buddhism. One of his most important writings, the Risho Ankoku Ron, preserved at Shochizen Hokkyoji, is one of the national treasures of Japan. Development of Nichiren Buddhism and its major lineages. Nichiren Buddhism is not a single denomination. Nichiren was originally an ordained Tendai priest and is not known to have established a separate Buddhist school. Nevertheless, his teachings led to the formation of different schools within several years after his passing. Before his death, Nichiren had named 6 senior priests whom he wanted to transmit his teachings to future generations: Nisho, Nichiro, Nikko, Nicho, Nichiji, and Nikko. Each started a lineage of schools, but Nichiji eventually traveled to the Asian continent and was never heard from again, and Nicho later in life rejoined and became a follower of Nikko. Separation of various Nichiren schools and lineages. Different interpretations of Nichiren's teachings had led to the establishment of various temples and schools, which however have in common reverence to the two basic doctrines of the chanting and the object of devotion. Although the former 5 disciples remained loosely affiliated to varying degrees, the last, Nikko, made a clean break by leaving Kuonji in 1289. The disciple Nikko had come to the conclusion that the remaining 5 disciples were embarking on heresy and syncretism of various Buddhist practices that he could no longer accept. He then went to the base of Mount Fuji, where he would be offered a piece of land by Nanjo Tokimitsu, where he would ultimately establish his own school based on orthodoxy, which would later be known as the Tarasekiji Temple of Nichiren Shoshu. In addition, he is also believed to have erected a Buddhist seminary at Omosu, Suruga Province, which later affiliated with the Nichiren Shu sect but would continue to retain the circular crane bird used by Nikko Shonin. Pious legends also recount his journey with the Daigo Honzon as he left Mount Minobu, never to return. Consequently, the disciple Nicho began to share the same complaints and grievances and would later join him in later years. After the passing of Nichiren, practical differences between the various Nichiren schools were relatively minor. Nevertheless, the following schools formed around Nichiren's disciples: the Minobu school by Nikko, the Fuji school by Nikko Shonin, co-joined later with the disciple Nicho Shonin, the Hama school by Nisho, the Ikegami school by Nichiro, the Nakayama school by Tokujonin. In the years following Nichiren's death, his and the temples founded by his disciples remained to a varying degree affiliated. By the 14th century, a certain split within the Nichiren schools occurred, though. One differentiates between the so-called Ichi lineage and Shotsu lineage. The Ichi lineage today comprises most of the traditional schools within Nichiren Buddhism, including some Nikko temples, of which the Nichiren Shu is the biggest representative. In this lineage, the whole of the Lotus Sutra, both the so-called essential and theoretical parts, also referred to as the imprinted gate, are venerated, while great attention is given to the 2nd and 16th chapter of the Lotus Sutra. Other parts of the sutra, or even the whole sutra, are recited. The Shotsu lineage comprises most, not all, temples of the Nikko lineage. Today those are most notably Nichiren Shoshu and Soka Gakkai. This lineage underlined the supremacy of the essential over the theoretical part of the Lotus Sutra, also referred to as the original gate. Therefore, almost solely the 2nd and 16th chapters of the Lotus Sutra are recited. The Ichi-Soritsu controversy was of no interest to outsiders, but it kept Nichiren theologians on their toes and forced them to define the positions with more clarity. It did result in the formation of new subsects, but these gave impetus to missionary enterprises which expanded Nichiren Buddhism and helped spread it throughout the country. The number of adherents to Nichiren's teachings grew steadily during the 14th and 15th century to the extent that whole communities became followers. By 1400, and only being outnumbered by Zen, Nichiren temples had been founded all over Kyoto, and although the various sects of Nichiren Buddhism were administratively independent, they met in a council to resolve common problems. By the 16th century, Nichiren Buddhism was no longer on the fringe of religious life, and a vast number of Kyoto's inhabitants adhered to Nichiren's teachings. The anarchy resulting from the conflict between the shoguns and the emperor resulted in the attacks by the so-called warrior monks from Mount Hiei. In its aftermath, 21 Nichiren temples were destroyed by fire. It was estimated that tens of thousands of Nichiren Buddhists lost their lives. Some researchers compare early Nichiren Buddhism with early Christianity. Tamura finds Nichiren's Buddhism to be broadly comparable with Christianity, as a religion of prophecy, in its spirit of martyrdom, in its apostolic consciousness, and additionally, in its emphasis upon history. Based on the tradition set by Nichiren, the relationship between the government, other major Buddhist schools and Nichiren temples remained ambiguous, though. The adherents of Nichiren Buddhism who made this aspect of Nichiren teachings a central pillar of the belief were the followers of the so-called Fujufuse lineage. The services were partly held in secret and culminated in the persecution and partly even the execution of its believers in 1668. The majority of official Nichiren temples were tamed during the Edo period to the effect that they were subsumed into a nationwide Buddhist parish system, designed to ensure religious peace and eradicate the common enemy, Christianity. In this process, also known as the Danka system, Buddhist temples were generally not only a center of Buddhist practice and learning, but were forced to carry out administrative functions, thereby also being controlled by the government, taming any missionary activities. During the Meiji Restoration from 1868 onwards, and in an attempt to eradicate Buddhism, Nichiren temples were forced, just like any other Buddhist school, to focus on funeral and memorial services as the main activity. Therefore, Nichiren Buddhism remained mainly temple-based. Most Nichiren schools, referring to their establishment, state the founding of the respective head a main temple. For example, Nichiren Shuto the year 1281, Nichiren Shoshu the year 1288, and Kempon Hokushu the year 1384. However, most of today's Nichiren schools did not form until the late 19th and early 20th century as also legal religious bodies. A last wave of mergers took place in the 1950s. Following the above-mentioned divide between the Ichi lineage and Shotsu lineage, the most notable division is the one between Nichiren Shu and Nichiren Shoshu. Documents first mentioned and discovered by Tara Sekiji priest Nikkyo in 1488 claimed that Nichiren passed full authority to Nikko alone. The original documents have disappeared, but true copies are preserved at Tara Sekiji. Other Nichiren bodies ignore them as forgeries. At the time, the documents may have served to underline Tara Sekiji's supposed superiority amongst Nikko temples, especially in respect to Ikegami Honmonji, the site of Nikko's tomb. In the later context of developments, the above-mentioned claims served as a reason on which what would later become Nichiren Shoshu based its orthodoxy on Nichiren Buddhism. Buddhism in general, even though there had been efforts by temples of the Nikko lineage in the late 19th century to unify into one single separate Nichiren school, the common Ha. Today's Nichiren Shoshu comprises only the Tara Sekiji Temple and its dependent temples. It is not identical to the historical Nikko Fuji lineage. Parts of the common Ha, the Honmonshu, eventually became part of Nikkenshu in the 1950s. New religions like Soka Gakkai, Shoshinkai, and Kenshokai trace their origins to the Nichiren Shoshu school, most notably among those is Soka Gakkai, which due to its steady growth is regarded today as Japan's largest lay Buddhist organization. Kuonji eventually became the head temple of today's Nichiren-shu, today the largest branch among traditional schools, encompassing the schools and temples tracing their origins to Nikko, Nisho, Nichiro, Nichiji and Nikko. The Reiyukai, Rishokozekai, and Nippons and Myo-oji Daisanga stem, in one form or another, from the Kuonji lineage. The Fuji lineage. Several temples located near Mount Fuji continue to follow Nichiren Buddhism, commonly referred to as Fuji-fuse. The Fuji lineage is often associated with Nichiren Shoshu Buddhism or organizations formerly affiliated with it, but is not limited to. The Fuji lineage includes the following temples: Tara Sekiji, the head temple of Nichiren Shoshu, and Soka Gakkai International, Kitayama Honmonji, Nichiren-shu, Koizumi Kronji, Nichiren-shu, Hotomaya Honji, Independent Temple, Shimojo Myrenji, Nichiren Shoshu, Nishiyama Honmonji, the head temple of Honmon Shoshu, Kyoto Yoboji, the head temple of Nichiren Hoshu, Izujitsu Joji, Nichiren-shu, major Nichiren Buddhist schools and organizations. The following lists are based on the Japanese Wikipedia article on Nichiren Buddhism, major Nichiren Buddhist schools and the head temples in alphabetical order. Major Nichiren Buddhist-based movements and lay organizations, in alphabetical order: Basho Gonenkai Kyodan, founded in 1950 by Kaichi Sekiguchi and Tomino Sekiguchi. Fujitara Sekiji Kensho Kaiya, founded in 1942 and expelled from Nichiren Shoshu in 1978. Hokkeko, lay organization closely affiliated with Nichiren Shoshu. Honmon Shoshu. Kokachu Kaya, a nationalist group founded in 1914 by Tanaka Chigaku. Meikokai Kyodan, founded in 1950 by Miyamoto Mitsu. Maedakai Kyodan, founded in 1951. Nichiren Buddhist Association of America, founded in 2001, expelled from Soka Gakkai International. Nippons and Myo-oji Daisanga, founded in 1917 by Nikodatsu Fuji. Reiyukai, founded in 1920 by Kakutaro Kubo and Kimiko Tani. Reiyukai considers itself the grandfather of lay-based new religions devoted to the Lotus Sutra and ancestor veneration. Rishokozekai, founded in 1938 by Nikio Nwano and Maoko Naganuma. Shoshinkai, founded in 1980, expelled from Nichiren Shoshu in 1981. Soka Gakkai, founded in Japan in 1930 by Sun Saburo Makiguchi and Soka Gakkai International, founded in 1975 by Daisaku Ikeda as lay organizations within Nichiren Shoshu. The process of SGI being excluded from Nichiren Shoshu started in 1991, affecting high-ranking SG leaders first, and in 1997 all SGI adherents were expelled by Nichiren Shoshu. nationalistic interpretations. Both Nichiren and his followers have been associated with fervent Japanese nationalism known as Nichirenism, not least between the Meiji period and the conclusion of World War II. The nationalistic interpretation of Nichiren's teachings are to be found mainly within lay Buddhist movements like Kokachukai Kenshokai. Most notable in this context, however, are the May 15th incident, the League of Blood incident, and Tanaka Chigaku's Kokachukai. Bibliography. Translations of Nichiren's writings. The Gosho Translation Committee. The Writings of Nichiren Daishonin, Volume 1, Sokugakkai, 2006. ISBN 4-412-010244. The Gosho Translation Committee. The Writings of Nichiren Daishonin, Volume 2, Sokugakkai, 2006. ISBN 4-412-013502. Kyotsu Hori, Sakashita, J. Writings of Nichiren Shonin, Doctrine 1, University of Hawaii Press, 2003, ISBN 0824827333-3. Tanabe Jr., George. Hori, Kyotsu. Writings of Nichiren Shonin, Doctrine 2, University of Hawaii Press, 2002, ISBN 0824825519-9. Kyotsu Hori, Sakashita, J. Writings of Nichiren Shonin, Doctrine 3, University of Hawaii Press, 2004, ISBN 0824822931-X. Kyotsu Hori, J. Sakashita. Writings of Nichiren Shonin, Doctrine 4, University of Hawaii Press, 2007, ISBN 0824831802. Kyotsu Hori, Sakashita, J. Writings of Nichiren Shonin, Doctrine 5, University of Hawaii Press, 2008, ISBN 0824833015. Kyotsu Hori, Sakashita, J. Writings of Nichiren Shonin, Doctrine 6, University of Hawaii Press, 2010, ISBN 0824834550. Selected Writings of Nichiren. Burton Watson et al. Trans. Philip B. Yampolsky, ed. Columbia University Press, 1990. Letters of Nichiren. Burton Watson et al. Trans. Philip B. Yampolsky, ed. Full disclosure statement. Although Sokugakkai retains the copyrights on the foregoing two works and finance the publication, they show some deviation from similar works published under Sokugakkai's own name. Website for English-language translations of works essential to the study of Nichiren Buddhism. Nichiren Buddhism Library. English. Montgomery, Daniel B. Fire in the Lotus. The Dynamic Buddhism of Nichiren. Mandala. HarperCollins, 1991. ISBN 1-85274-091-4. Bowring, Paul. Kornicki, Peter. The Cambridge Encyclopedia of Japan. eds. Cambridge University Press, 1993. ISBN 0-521-40352-9. Japan. An Illustrated Encyclopedia. Kondansha, 1993, ISBN 4-06-205938-X, CD-ROM version, 1999. Corsten, Richard. Buddha in Daily Life. An Introduction to the Buddhism of Nichiren Daishonin, 1995. ISBN 0712674566-X. Matsunaga, Dagon. Matsunaga, Alicia. Foundation of Japanese Buddhism, Volume 2. The Mass Movement, Los Angeles, Tokyo. Buddhist Books International, 1996. ISBN 0-914910-280. Lotus Seeds, The Essence of Nichiren Shu Buddhism. Nichiren Buddhist Temple of San Jose, 2000. ISBN 0-970592000. The Doctrines and Practice of Nichiren Shoshu. Nichiren Shoshu Overseas Bureau, 2002. The Soka Gakkai Dictionary of Buddhism. Soka Gakkai, 2002, ISBN 4-41201205-0 online. Stone, Jacqueline I. Original Enlightenment and the Transformation of Medieval Japanese Buddhism, University of Hawaii Press 2003, ISBN 9780824827717. Japanese Nichiren Shoshu Yogi, Tara Sekaji, 1978, Rev. ed. 1999. Shimpan Bukkyo Tetsugaku Deijitan, Seikyo Shimbunsha, 1985. No ISBN. Nichiren Shoshu no Kisateki Kenkyu. Yamaguchi Hando, Sankibo Busho Rin, 1993. ISBN 4-7963-0763-X. Awanami Nihonshi Jiten, Awanami Shorten, 1999. ISBN 4-00080093-0. Nichiren Shoshu Nomen, Tara Sekaji, 2002. Kyogaku Yogo Kaisetsushu, Kyodo Enoki, Comp. Wato Henshoshitsu, 2006.